Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to another installment of Rebel Without Applause, coming to you, as I always do, from not only my movie studio apartment right here in the Wood of the Holly, but also now my television studio apartment, courtesy of Facebook Live, where I've been doing regular jazz shows. You're welcome to check that out. But for the time being, we are now in the audio realm. By that, I mean the podcast realm. And as always, I am here under the sign, that being the Hollywood sign, overlooking the enchanted but now COVID-19 post-apocalyptic paradise that is La La Land. And today, in the spirit of social distancing, I am taking that distance to an altogether new level. And I have a special guest on the line, and he's connected to me via phone, very far away across a very large pond. As a matter of fact, it's the biggest friggin' pond on the planet. By that, I mean the Pacific Ocean. And he's sitting comfortably, I hope, in a place called Danang. And for those of you that are familiar with history in Vietnam, that should ring a special bell. But with me is a journalist, a surfer, a raconteur, a conversationalist. He's covered all things from politics to surf to the music scene in Asia. He's from Sydney, Australia, and he's here tonight with me. Now, for me, it's tonight, but for him, it's tomorrow morning. So we're connected by the thin thread of the internet, but we're going not only across space, but across the international date line and time as well. With me, and welcome to A Rebel Without Applause, is Hugh Bohane. How are you, Hugh?
I'm well, thanks, Bill. Great to hear from you.
Yes, and we met under kind of interesting circumstances a few nights ago. I was lying in bed, and I get a call from this lady who's a very effervescent and talented woman named Tiana, and she called me from Vienna, Austria, and I guess she had heard an episode of my podcast, connected with me. I was like in a kind of half stupor of sleep, somewhere between consciousness and dreamland. And I started talking to her, and she patched me into you. And we had this interesting conversation. You're about to start a podcast yourself. But right now you're sitting in Danang. Tell me what you're seeing from where you are right now in Vietnam.
Right, so this morning is a beautiful sunny day here. I just went up to the rooftop of my apartment block and had a look at the surf. And it's a nice 3 to 4 foot wave coming through offshore. And the torture is that the beach is closed and we're not allowed to surf because of the big corona.
Right. The big Co-19 is surf swell indifferent. And I'm a regular here at Malibu in the land of law. And they've arrested people that have surfed. So we're on a surf lockdown. So do you surf regularly there? Is that like you normally go out every day when you can?
I do. Yeah. I get out there as much as possible. It's a great wave when it's going. It's seasonal, so it's from September to March is when the best waves are.
Is that what they call the typhoon season out of Asia? Or
yeah, we still can get typhoons in the other part of the year as well, but it's generally the monsoon, the rainy season is when the waves are best.
Now, did you decide to live in Danang because of the surf? Why are you there?
Yeah, that's right. I did. I chose Danang because I wanted to be still in Asia and live somewhere on the beach where there was surf. And that was the primary decision for moving here. Yeah.
And what kind of surf culture is there in Vietnam? I mean, like I mentioned to you just a moment ago, I was in Hoi An, which is not too far from Danang. And I didn't see a lot of surfing, but they were there. Is there a crew, a scene, like surf shops? What's the scene there like?
Yeah, it's a small scene, and that's sort of the way we like it. It's off the radar. It's not really on the international surf map. Mm-hmm. And, to be fair, it isn't on the scale of Indonesia or the Philippines or Sri Lanka, but it's a pretty good wave. And it's not too crowded. So that's the real bonus, is that you get low crowds here. It's mostly expats, European travelers, Westerners who are surfing, but there's a small but growing Vietnamese surf crew as well.
So Charlie does surf, although in small numbers. That was the line from.
That's right. That's
so
right.
so so
Apocalypse
they
Now.
were wrong. The Apocalypse Now was completely bullshit. Charlie does surf. Who knew?
That's
Okay,
right.
we've now
That's
dispelled
right.
another stereotype. And
That's
Charlie
right.
surfs, although not in great numbers. Now, when I was in that area, now people, I guess the Danang. Now, we're going to talk about the history of Danang in terms of what the American War was, but just surf speak, as I recall, it's a big, long expanse of just beach break, I guess, or A-frames that, extend north and south. Am I correct in my recollection?
Yeah, that's right. Yep, it's a long stretch of beach. It was actually voted one of the top 10 beaches in the world by Forbes magazine.
Really? Now, would that be
Um,
China Beach, what Americans formerly referred to as China Beach?
that's right, but that name no longer serves its purpose. It's referred to now as Mike Beach.
Mm-hmm.
So due to certain sensitivities, it's
Right.
Mike Beach.
Well, I guess the sensitivity would be that Vietnam's oldest rival is China,
That's right.
territorially and otherwise. The American experience, while horrific, was a
Mm.
blip on the larger historical rivalry between China and their southern coastal neighbors in Vietnam. Am I guessing that's the reason for that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they still, there's still quite a lot of tension regarding that history.
I know there's a lot of tension. I mean, there's a big there's a rivalry for some offshore islands, I believe, and for coastal access. What's the
That's right.
status of that right now in terms of that rivalry between China and Vietnam?
Yeah, so there's two islands that are being disputed between Vietnam and China, and that's definitely a sore point for the Vietnamese. And they want to have those islands given back to them, and that they're recognized on the map as their own.
And where are those islands?
So they're just sitting off the east coast, northeast.
The northern section of Vietnam, closer to
That's
Hanoi.
right.
One of the places I really love there, two things. One, Hoi An, very picturesque, pretty much a tourist magnet, I guess, or it probably still is or was up until a few months ago.
That's right.
Yeah. Have you been down there?
Yeah, I've been to Hoi An. Yeah, it's a beautiful spot, and lots of lanterns and at night. But yeah, right now it's a ghost town like Danang is. So all international flights are grounded. Domestic flights aren't coming in any capacity. Both towns are very quiet at the moment,
Yeah.
which is also quite nice. It's actually a new normal that I haven't seen in the 2 years that I've been here in Danang. Usually, it's quite a bustling sort of place with lots of tourists and tourist buses, and right now it's very quiet. You could hear a pin drop. It's quite surreal.
Yeah, it's funny. Same with Los Angeles. I mean, I've seen things in LA in the last 2 weeks that I've haven't seen in decades. And first and foremost are parking spaces.
Yeah.
I've never seen one here. Oh my God! Look at the street's empty. It's a totally new world order. So I'm going to just fill in some historical gaps because Danang for America, that's pretty much where the U.S. war began. I mean, that's where Lyndon Johnson landed those first Marines to begin what in 1965 was a 10-year clusterfuck bordering on genocide for the Vietnamese people. But it all began right there at Danang. That's where those ships came in, and the first bases were set up that, as that war expanded into the disaster that it was. Now, when I was there about I guess it was like 7 or 8 years ago, I was amazed how modern it was, how many hotels and golf courses, especially between like Danang as you went south from there, and what looked like country clubs and golf courses and beach hotels with pools. And I thought, this is what they were fighting for so that they could flip this into like high-end hotels. But, the tides of commerce overrun everything, I guess. I don't know if that's still this true about what I saw, but that was what I observed when I was in Da Nang.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of Miami on the beach, and a lot of this is all very new. It all happened in the last sort of 5 years, really.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite a new sort of place. When you look at the sort of hotels and infrastructure here, it reminds me of sort of almost Baz Luhrmann, Romeo and Juliet set of sort of Verona on the beach.
Aha, that's a good reference. Baz Luhrmann, very good. Now, have you had a chance to go up to Hue, which I thought was a fantastic city? I loved Hue when I was there, which is not too far from where you are.
I went through Hue a number of years ago on my first trip to Vietnam, and I
Mm-hmm.
haven't had a chance to get back there recently, but I definitely want to get back. It's got a lot of history.
Yeah, with the ancient city, it was the imperial capital of what was
That's right.
called Cochin, China, I believe, in its earlier incarnation.
Incarnation.
That's where the old monarchy of Vietnam presided from Hue, and so it's that ancient city. I mean, it was a perfume river, and I just had a scooter, and I was in heaven there. It was like it was just wonderful. I loved Vietnam. Now, one of the things from where I'm sitting here in the United States, we're hearing all about China, the
That's
Wuhan,
right.
the ground zero, the epicenter of this COVID-19. And I want to talk to you about that because you did some interesting writing about it. But what's going on in Vietnam with this virus?
Well, Vietnam was very quick to close the border with China in early February.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, it's the government has done a fantastic job at keeping the cases very low. So right now we have something like 250 or less cases,
In the country
which
or in
in the
Danang?
country,
Oh my God.
which is extremely low when you think about the population of Vietnam. So they've done an amazing job. And, we get regular updates via text message from the Ministry of Health, and there were boxes of free masks being handed out. Yeah, Vietnam's really done a great job at handling this. They've had experience in the past with SARS and the global financial crisis and various other disasters, so they're well equipped to deal with this. And I had a chat with an economist about it recently, and he's quite optimistic that Vietnam will recover from this. It's just they've got to keep the infection rates low.
So you must feel relatively safe and secure. I went to the
Mm,
market today. I was masked and gloved up and
mm,
bundled and hustled in and out of what was my favorite Thai restaurant, my rather Thai market. But,
mm,
in America, the rich country, we've definitely have our supply of aircraft carriers and fighter squadrons and tanks and all manner of machine guns and killing tools, but we are woefully short on life-saving tools. How does that happen? Maybe
quite
if
ironic. Mm,
yes, yes. And
mm,
Vietnam has got what they need. So God bless
mm,
those people. There's lessons to be
mm.
learned for the United
Absolutely.
States of America, that is to be sure. What I'm getting from you is basically you're trusting the information that you're getting from the government. When you say 250 cases out of a country of what, like 20 million? I don't even know what Vietnam
Oh
population.
no, it's more than that. It's more
Yeah,
like 80.
80 million. It's just a big,
Mm,
big country with I
mm,
felt, huge economic potential in Asia, and they've got less than 500 confirmed cases, and they have the
mm.
tools to test.
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, and Vietnam was benefiting quite a bit from US-China trade war scenarios. And, then this happened. And of course, that's hit tourism very hard. But by all accounts from this economist that I was speaking to, he thinks, that Vietnam will bounce back, but it will take time. And if we sort of study the China model of it being sort of a 3-month kind of lockdown, and now we're seeing Wuhan open up again, it's just going to take time.
So maybe we're about 2 months behind, I guess, in terms of our experience with this virus compared to
Mm,
the Asian experience. So there
mm,
there might be some cause for cautious optimism, meaning this
mm,
first tidal wave of infection that we're
mm,
seeing will, if humans moderate their behavior and
mm,
isolate, this will, I don't want to say pass, but it will diminish, and eventually, hopefully, it'll take the ranks of other manageable diseases and things that can kill you. I guess. I guess we can.
mm.
I'm guessing. I mean, maybe we can take some solace from the success of Vietnam.
That's right. Vietnam is definitely a good model to look at, and it's great to see that the government is talking about using tools to sustain the economy if it does go on for longer than, say, a few months. They are already talking about stimulus packages, which is pretty amazing for a country that we wouldn't classify as sort of first world.
Hmm.
But they're definitely they have the tools to help the community.
Now, when I was in Ho Chi Minh City, I didn't make it to Hanoi. I mean, I was impressed by how tightly packed people lived. And,
Mm,
as I think back about it, I said, wow, man, that's probably just raging in those communities. People live
mm,
in very, small and tightly dense areas. And
mm,
yet you're only telling me there are only
mm,
250 cases. That's
mm.
that's pretty impressive. And you're basically trust the government. You can't hide this stuff because coffins are hard to hide.
That's right, and I think it all falls back on that immediate decision to shut the border early. Other countries weren't so quick to close their borders, and that's really what I trace it back to, or what I put it down to. They really were quick to jump on that and, yeah, stop all inbound flights from China.
But there's also a long land border with China. I mean,
That's right.
so I mean, it's like it's more complicated for Vietnam because it's not just flights and boats. It's people can walk across that border, I believe.
That's right. So they were shut. Some of them have actually opened up on the in the borders in the north, but that's only just to allow trade through. And there's a backlog there, so it's still slow and backed up.
But Vietnam, I'm going to ask you this. Are they pretty much self sufficient in terms of food and basic needs? They can meet their own population's food needs?
Pretty much, as far as I can tell, you do see a lot of food made in Vietnam, but obviously there's also a lot of food coming from outside, say China. There's a big Korean expat community who come and go from Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
So you see a lot of Korean noodles. You see some food imported from China, but Vietnam does have quite a lot of its own food.
When I was in Vietnam, what blew me away more than anything was the markets. Just
Mm,
the sheer volume and variety of vegetables and sea life and
mm,
fowl and bee. I mean, I was just like, I just could spend my whole days in the markets, just walking around, whether it was in Hue or Ho Chi Minh City or when I had a chance to get down to the Mekong area. It was just mind blowing to me. And while, yes, by American standards, we would classify Vietnam as maybe a poor country, but as a food country, it
mm,
seemed to me exceedingly wealthy. I just couldn't believe what
mm,
I was seeing food wise there.
mm,
I don't know if that's
mm,
your impression or it still is, but
mm.
that's what I felt.
Vietnam prides itself on its food culture. You've got incredible food here. They always have been well known for their cuisine. So you get your, pho soups and bun bao days and banh mi, and uh, one of the typical dishes here is bun xiao, which is this sort of pancake dish with
Mm-hmm.
either pork or prawn and bamboo shoots in it, and delicious sort of pancake. So Vietnamese food is world class.
Now, you did a lot of coverage over, what went down politics-wise in Hong Kong in the
That's right.
end of last year. It's interesting
Mm,
with this coronavirus. It's like Krakatoa, blasted off, and anything that preceded it feels small or it's like what
mm,
what happened
mm,
before this? It's like it almost erases everything. But you were
mm,
you were covering that. Were you in Hong Kong for
mm.
that?
Yeah, I was. I did a couple of trips there last year, right at the height of the protests. And I mean, one of the things that concerns me now is that the world is distracted with the coronavirus, and so a place like Hong Kong now is very vulnerable and still needs media attention along with everything else because it hasn't stopped. There's still a lot of things happening there that need to be reported.
Now, for the benefit of my audience, most of whom
Mm,
are not really hip to the core issues. I'm going to just
Mm.
brief them. Maybe you can correct me or guide me if I'm wrong. Now, Hong Kong historically was one of the Straits Settlements. By that, I mean it was a British trading outpost along with Singapore and Penang. And I guess when they had their handover in 1997, Hong Kong was able to hold on to its legal and political institutions, even though it was folded into the larger government of mainland China. It was like one country, two systems. And now that's
right.
being encroached upon. Is that basically at the core of what this dispute is?
Absolutely, it is. It all kicked off over this proposed extradition bill
Mm-hmm.
that was supposed to go through last year, in the early part of last year. And this was to do with a murder that had happened between a Hong Kong couple where the boyfriend had murdered his girlfriend. And this is where China had sort of stepped in and said, we want extradition laws for Hong Kong. And the people saw this as a dangerous move because it could mean that anyone could be extradited to the mainland of China under various charges. And knowing that the justice system isn't the same in the mainland, a lot of Hong Kongers were fearful of this going ahead. And the CEO, the chief, Carrie Lam, she was adamant about putting it through, and then mass
The
protests broke
CO,
out.
that means the chief officer of Hong Kong, is that correct?
Yeah,
The
that's
mayor
right.
or
Yeah,
whatever the
yeah,
larger,
yeah.
Uh-huh.
So this is what sort of started it off. And then eventually she caved in on that. But by then she'd lost the trust of the people, and they demanded for other things to be given back to the Hong Kong people. They wanted an inquiry into some of the police brutality. They wanted universal suffrage, basically 5 demands. And that's still ongoing.
Let me ask you this, just from the point of view.
Mm,
Most countries maintain extradition treaties with other countries.
mm,
If I commit a
mm,
crime, and I'm in Australia, there's a treaty in all likelihood between America and Australia. I could be extradited to
mm,
face trial in America or vice versa. That's what these treaties are. So
mm,
in the case of murder, which is
mm,
what was the inciting incident, well, that seems not like an unreasonable request. If somebody
mm,
committed a murder, that they could conceivably be extradited to face justice, where the
mm.
crime was committed. So how did that really explode into this larger picture where the sovereignty and freedom of the whole state of Hong Kong was at risk?
Well, I think it goes back to the fact that the whole ecosystem of Hong Kong is changing rapidly. Like you were saying before, that the two systems has been encroached upon, and that joint declaration between Britain and China to maintain the two systems has been encroached upon, and this extradition bill was the start of it. In terms of the fear that Hong Kongers are under, that they could be taken into the mainland and disappeared for dissidence, activism,
So for political reasons as
pro-democracy,
opposed to like criminal
political
reasons.
reasons.
Right. Well,
Exactly,
right.
exactly.
So it's ironic to
And
me because for generations, people in Asia or in Hong Kong too, I guess, were struggling against the imperialism that was exercised by the Brits,
that's right.
and that was a source of political tension going back hundreds of years since the British established those trading outposts. And now the irony is that Hong Kong has been folded back into Chinese sovereignty, and now they're struggling against Chinese imperialism of a different sort. I think that's kind of an accurate irony. Is that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. And Hong Kong, it used to be this vibrant, international business capital of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go there now, especially last year, towards the end of last year when I was there, it was almost a war zone. It's very sad, and it's heartbreaking when you get close to the protesters. I mean, they're very young, a lot of them. They're sort of teenagers up to their 20s, and because essentially it's their future that they're fighting for. They're terrified of Hong Kong becoming another Chinese city. They're fighting for their freedom.
So it's not only an economic issue where the vibrancy that was historically Hong Kong is at risk, but also just civil liberties and basic freedoms. Those things are in the balance right now in the minds of the young
Exactly.
people there.
Exactly. And, and prior to last year, there was also the umbrella movement in around 2014 with Joshua Wong, etc. And that sort of stemmed back to the mainland wanting a subject put into school books in for Hong Kong students to do with Chinese history and essentially propaganda. And this sort of created that umbrella movement as well. And they fought very hard to stop that
Now, what does
going
that
ahead.
mean? How did that term umbrella movement come into being? Because I saw the videos of the protesters, and they were all carrying umbrellas. So it wasn't like it was raining. There was some symbolic meaning to those umbrellas. What does that mean?
Well, that's right. I mean, that's sort of they shield themselves with these umbrellas when they go out into protests. And last year it was quite brutal in terms of police brutality, and a lot of tear gas was used, rubber bullets,
Mm-hmm.
even live ammunition. So, and this is sort of the way they shield themselves, and also to sort of hide their identity as well.
How would you characterize the protests? Was it in the tradition of Gandhi or Martin Luther King, where they were strictly disciplined to avoid any kind of violent confrontation, or was more haphazard?
It's really a David versus Goliath struggle.
Mm-hmm.
They use the motto "Be Water" in the movement. It's sort of the Bruce Lee motto of "Be Water," and the sheer numbers of them turning up every weekend on the streets over sort of September, November, October last year. I mean, these were big months for the protests, and they were just incredibly brave. The way they would, have these sort of Mexican standoffs with the Hong Kong police,
Now, are the
and
Hong Kong police,
mm,
are they under the authority of mainland China or of just the Hong Kong city government?
that's where the problem lies. A lot of the protesters are concerned that there are mainland police embedded with the Hong Kong police
Got it.
giving orders.
Mm-hmm.
This is the big issue here.
So those police, are they of the community? Because that often has a restraining effect on police if they're, if they got to go home to the same community and look across the street at people that were protesting. Is that what that is? Or I don't know.
The protesters were very concerned about police brutality, and that was one of the demands. And is that there was an inquiry to police brutality. They felt that the police were too heavy-handed, and also to release any of the protesters from detention was another demand. And this is where we're at now.
And those demands have not been met.
No, those demands haven't been met. So far, only the extradition bill was cancelled.
Do you think that from like mainland China's point of view that this was a situation that they were looking for to kind of make inroads into the sovereignty of Hong Kong? This was like an opportunity that they took to chip away at that wall?
Oh, absolutely. And so the whole ecosystem of Hong Kong is changing frenetically, and they're just not ready for it.
So immigration slash infiltration is like another dynamic that's going on in terms of what the
That's right.
future. How are they making out with the virus there?
Well, they were very vulnerable, and they were running out of masks, and and this is the big concern too, is when you do have already a lot of tension between the Hong Kong police and the population. Civil liberties just get stripped away even further. My sources on the ground were saying, people are getting arrested just for getting food and things like this, and it's just
This is during
I,
the viral crisis now.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Just for going to a restaurant, and gathering in a queue to get food. I mean, people would be sort of whisked away. And my biggest concern is I just feel that, under the wave of this virus, this distraction, this hysteria and panic around the world, people aren't going to be keeping an eye on how events unfold back in Hong Kong.
or anywhere for that matter. I
Or
mean,
anyway, yeah.
my hope is, if there's a silver lining, at least for America, is that we will come to a recognition that health is not a commodity like pork bellies or petroleum, that it's an individual right and a collective responsibility. Now, whether or not that happens, I don't know. You know, it's in the balance here. But that's like, if I'm going to be optimistic and not go down this little drain pipe of depression, I'm going to try and hold on to that belief. I miss surfing, I can tell you that. Somebody got arrested. I'd like to do a lot of stand-up paddling. And, you know, when there's no waves, I just take my paddle boards out and just tool around. And somebody got yanked out of the ocean and arrested for paddling. I got a bunch of texts. Hey, Bill, was that you that got arrested? And I go, no, I wasn't me. I love my sup, you know. I love it when there's no waves. I do prone and stand-up paddling. And I was like, all my friends thought, oh, Kalmanson got nailed. He was out there. Because the week before I did a podcast and I was talking about just supping out there, social distancing on the Pacific Ocean. And I posted these little GoPro videos of me just paddling out in this like ice skating rink that was Santa Monica Bay. But all these support systems are taken away. I mean, the only thing I would say about this is we are all soldiers in this war against an unseen enemy. I mean, we all have, I guess, a part to play by locking it down and letting this contagion pass over until we have the tools by way of treatment and vaccines to put this little fucker in its place. You know, that's all I can say. Where else have you surfed in Vietnam? Is there a surf trip waiting in Vietnam that's worth it for a guy like me?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just thinking about that. And so there's a few places you can surf. There's a place called Mornay, which is just on the coast directly across from Saigon, from Ho Chi Minh. And that's got a left-hand point break, and that's surfable in the season. We know of some secret spots, obviously around Danang, but they're a little bit sensitive because it's often sort of army boundary, sea boundary area. So
yeah, that's a drag when it's the army's after you and you get a good wave. Yeah.
I've had my own sort of run-ins with the army. So yeah, that's the thing. We just have to be a little bit careful about sort of where you go surfing because it's all can be quite sensitive.
Well, when I remember I took a bus from Da Nang to Hue, right? And so, just an interesting geographical point is like above Da Nang, it's like the climate changes. It's like a different climate. You get around, you go up and around, and it's like, oh, this is different here. It's cooler. It's more temperate. But as I remember kind of winding down the hill and through this tunnel as I recollect it, and I looked out, I don't even know what town it was, but there were these big river mouths, and I was like out at these river mouths, you could see like these holy, look at that left, look at that right. There's nobody on it. It just looked fantastic surf-wise. There's got to be a lot of surf there, It's a huge coastline.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there is, and it's an amazing wave. I mean, Danang is fantastic. These waves come in like freight trains when we're in the season, and just an amazing wave. Really powerful, and it gets big. It gets up to 10 foot. And there's a lot of water moving around and
a lot of current.
A lot of currents, and it's certainly definitely a wave not to be underestimated.
Now, have you surfed in California? Have you been out here?
I haven't. I've been to California as a kid. We didn't. I don't remember surfing there. I remember surfing, even Hawaii. I think I didn't surf. I think we were just there for a holiday, and I didn't have a surfboard with me. So no, I can't wait to get back to the States and do some surfing there. Most of the surfing I've done has just been in Australia and Asia.
Now, I've heard I want to go to Noosa Heads. I hear that's a great longboard wave and a great place to hang.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, it's an incredible wave. And you've got this amazing national park that you walk through that is just dotted with these stunning beaches. And it's a great wave when it gets going. Australia's great because you get waves all year round, really, depending on where you are.
Now, do you like living this expat sort of existence far from, your homeland?
Oh, sure. It's exciting and never a dull moment. And of course, it comes with its challenges and difficulties. But no, look, I'm happy with the choices I've made.
Now, have you been to Wuhan? Because I read some of the articles where had written about the
Mm,
epicenter of where this went down, this
mm.
virus.
Yeah, I wrote a story for Rolling Stone, the Australian edition,
Mm-hmm.
on the punk music scene in Wuhan that had gone viral before the virus. Yes, so Wuhan has an interesting history. It's actually quite steeped in revolution,
Right.
and
The
it was
Wuching
sort
or
of
the
the
1911 revolution, it started there, right?
that's right.
Right.
That's right. That's right. So that was really interesting to look into, and yeah, I was just doing phoners with various musicians on the ground in Wuhan who were sort of in lockdown in the early stages of it, and yeah, it was fascinating, and I was very grateful for how forthcoming they were. Given that China, there's a lot of surveillance and you know, speaking to the foreign press is not easy, and so that was an interesting story to look into.
From where I sit, there's some conspiracy theories floating around. Most of them I
Mm,
don't buy, some of
mm,
which have to do with this was planted, that it was manufactured in a lab. I don't really have an informed opinion about any of that, but I'm very cautious about any kind of conspiracy theories. I feel like it's people trying to impose order on a universe that is essentially chaotic and sometimes without reason.
mm.
I don't know if you have any thoughts about that or insight to offer.
Yeah, look, I mean, I try not to entertain any conspiracy theories, and I think we basically just have to accept the narrative for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That there is this virus, it is real. I can't entertain any sort of crazy conspiracy theories like that, it was, created by either the US or China or any of these sort of things,
Out of a James Bond movie.
That's right. Yeah.
Dr. V, we have the COVID-19. We will launch it if James Bond comes in and subverts the COVID-19. Donna, Donna. I can see it already. I mean, it's like a Thunderball, right? Terrence Young directing, Sean Connery,
Yeah.
COVID-19 in the basement with all the hot chicks with the virus outfits, It's like, okay, there's the comedian in me. I don't know. It's like out of Dr. No or something, It's like these, there's like that's it's a much more entertaining worldview if you can, embrace these ideas. It's much better as a screenwriter as opposed
Oh,
to
yeah,
things
sure.
just happen. Guess what? Things mutate and happen. A bat flies by a What is that animal? Like a pangolin or what's it called? I've never even heard of it.
England, yeah.
Yeah, a bat drops a piece of shit on a rock next to a pangolin. The pangolin eats it. The pangolin doesn't feel so well. And guess what? Oh, one of those exotic food trappers happens to catch that pangolin and he eats the fucking thing, over a campfire, goes in, boffs his wife in Wuhan. And next thing you know, they're both sick. But before they know it, they go to the market and they do a dance. They go square dancing and off it goes. Maybe that's the scenario. Who the fuck knows? I don't know. Shit happens in the universe.
That's right.
And then if someone says, well, what would be the odds of that happening? Well, the odds of anything happening are friggin' far. The odds that there are even human beings on Earth is
Mm,
actually that the genetic thing just happened so that like these modern homos the odds are like infinitesimal, but they happened. So that's sort of my kind of view of the universe. It's like, it's more just mistakes, and things
sure.
happen. I don't know.
Mm,
That's my wrap on the virus. I don't know. My goal is to just stay disciplined and not
mm,
go out for the next few weeks. So we are on a total
mm,
lockdown here in Los Angeles.
sure.
Basically, absent, high tech. America is very much about the high tech cures and the high end medicine, but this kind of thing comes down to what we would call in American football parlance blocking and tackling. By that I mean Fundamentals: separate, protect yourself, keep your hands clean, limit contact. The way I look at viruses is they're organisms, or not even really organisms, but they're creatures that have one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to find hosts and replicate. And if they don't have opportunities, they have no place to go. So their big happy moment, if you're a virus, is when people are infected but stupid and dumb and don't know. And our main weapon is what we're doing now. And then hopefully things will become manageable, I guess. I mean, I'm a stand-up comedian.
Right.
There's no venue left on earth for me. Like a comedian? Like, come on, who's going to go to a comedy club and sit in an enclosed room and have people laughing, and while they're laughing, they're projectile vomiting Co-19 bombs into an enclosed area? I mean, the thing is like, hey, that comedian killed. He was great. Yeah, he killed all right. You don't even know. It's like it's got a fuse on it. By 2 weeks, he's going to kill you. That's what a comedy club is. So,
you're killing me.
That's my job, man. But my thing is, it's like podcasting
you're literally killing me.
Podcasting is the last area of show business that still is happening. It's like everything else that's like, it's over, we can't do it anymore. And that's why I'm actually doing live jazz shows out of my apartment, for Facebook Live. And I don't know. Otherwise, people think, well, who's listening, Bill? I go, I don't care who's listening. I'm doing it more for me than anybody that listens. I don't want to go insane. I am so lonely here. I don't know about you. Are you single? Or are you?
Yeah. I'm single at the moment. I'm on my own. I mean, I was kind of an extrovert before all this happened, being a writer and stuff. And you look for the silver linings, people like ourselves who are in sort of media. This is an opportunity to sort of bolt down and get to work. And I sort of see it as an opportunity more than anything else. And sure, it's, very sad and terrifying that, this is all going on outside and whatnot. But, look at William Shakespeare. I mean, he wrote two of his most famous plays during the plague.
Is there a novel in you that's waiting to come out?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm chipping away at one. At the moment, I sort of had three going on at the same time, and now I'm sort of just thinking of combining them all into one.
Well, there's some great writers who lived, the expat existence, most famously for me, especially in Southeast Asia, with Somerset Maugham. He wrote beautiful stories that took place in Malaya and Hong Kong, and also, of course, Graham Greene,
Oh, fantastic. I'm glad you mentioned him. I was about to say, one of my favorites. Brilliant. Yeah. Incredible, huh? What a life. And then it turned out that he might have been MI6. So it's,
he was,
I guess the writer's a good cover.
And Joseph Conrad was wrote about, that part of the world, and he was Polish, but he wrote in English. And so maybe there's room for you, out there,
I've got a ways to go yet. I'm definitely not in that canon, but thank you.
You just show up every day for it. You show up every day. Nobody knows.
Oh, that's right.
It's like a bricklayer shows up, he lays bricks. A writer shows up, he arranges letters into words and words into sentences and hopefully into a story. Nobody knows. So it's just showing up for yourself and your muse. So I want to extend to you some good luck. And Thank you, sir. I have a few wishes. One, that we can surf together someday. And I'd like to get to Noosa, before it's all over for me surf-wise. Yeah. So, Hugh Bohane.
Look me up.
I will. Well, I want
go surfing in Danang.
Surfing in Danang or elsewhere.
Yeah, I hope you can come out here for a wave. You'll be impressed when it's on. It's really on. It's a great wave.
I look forward to that. I friggin' loved Vietnam. The food, the culture. It was just a gorgeous place for me. I was enchanted. I felt in many ways this is like the Garden of Eden. So from the time I was 8 to 18, all I heard about was Vietnam as a nightmare, a place of conflict and war and just destruction psychically and physically and otherwise. And then I go there and I go, this place is paradise. Holy cow. Who knew? So it's a tremendous irony.
There's so forgiving and just such nice people. What you see is what you get.
Hey, Hugh, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it.
Likewise, Bill. It's been an education. You're a good man, and I love your comedy and your podcasts.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Well, I appreciate
thanks
it.
so much.
Take care, Hugh. You be safe, man.
Over and out.
See you, baby.
Yeah, you too, man.
Bye.
Okay.
So there you have it, folks. Direct from Danang in Vietnam. That was Hugh Bohane. Till next time, namaste, shalom, and aloha. Nama shaloha.